Thank you. It's 7:31 on November 28th, 2012. We're going to start the 7:30 hearing of the Milton Board of Appeals. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be acting as the board's chair tonight. On my left is Ted Daber, and on my right is Frank O'Brien, members of the Board of Appeal. The first hearing we'll hear tonight is at 7:30 here in the John Cronin Conference Room upon the application of Kathleen McComb. McComb, did I say that right? Kathleen McComb, the applicant, dated. I will read the advertisement that we had in the newspaper, as well as inform the members here present with us today what's in the record, and then I'll invite the applicant here to present to the Board of Appeals. The application is dated October 30th, 2012, on file in the Board of Appeals for a variance from the terms of Section 6C1 of Chapter 10 of the General Bylaws of the Milton, of the Chapter 10 of the General Bylaws of the Town of Milton, so as to build an addition of 11 foot by 12 foot by 1 foot story at the rear of the existing family residence located at 165 Thatcher Street in Milton, which is located in a Residence C district. The addition is proposed to be set back 6.9 feet from the left side property line. Section 6C1 requires that new buildings or new portions of buildings be set back a minimum distance of 10 feet from the side property line. All are set forth in the application on file with the board and open to public inspection. As I said, my name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be acting as the chair. In front of me is the file. We've got the advertisement, the application from the applicant, a letter from the Board of the Milton Building Inspector indicating that the building inspector has received the application for a building permit and has denied it, consistent with the advertisement that I just read, as well as informing the applicant, Kathleen McComb, that she has the right to seek relief. Got a mortgage inspection plan of the premises that's been filed, as well as a certified plot plan of the premises indicating the layout of the property, along with proposed improvements. The certified plot plan was prepared by Boston Survey, Inc. It's dated July 19th, 2012. And it's all right here on file with the board, and it's open for public inspection if people would like to look at it. Kathleen, I'd like to call you and your team to the table, and welcome to the Board of Appeals.
The drawings right here, can everybody see them?
This? Sure. Put it on the screen for you.
Sure.
Don't stand in front of it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to present this for Kathleen and Kevin. As said, we have
Could you just tell us who you are and
Christopher Architecture. We're looking to seek relief for a side yard setback. As you know, the zoning requires that it be 10 feet. The existing non-conforming is at 6.9, and we're just continuing the addition along that, which will be a variance of 6.9 feet off of the left side property line. The reason we're doing this, asking for this relief, is in order for the family to be able to get a better working kitchen. The current kitchen is just very, very tight and very small, so we're proposing to add this section of the building right here. There's actually an existing right here. So we're going to be adding this little area here to make a much better area for the kitchen layout, working area, and things of that nature. We've received positive feedback from the neighbors and everything. Everybody seems to be on board with it. There hasn't been any negativity to our knowledge. And we don't see this as being a detriment to the neighborhood or anything like that. And we see this being a good project for good people. So we do kindly ask that, the board approve this so that they can get the much-needed living space to the kitchen that they need. Again, as described, the proposed addition is about 11 feet by about 12 feet, and it's a one-story kitchen addition, and that's it. And then here are the elevations. So again, this is the section right here that we're adding on to this is actually the left side of the building, the right side, and then here is the rear. So it's a very, very small addition, but. Any questions?
So members of the board have questions for the applicant? Does the applicant have anything else to add? Okay, okay.
We're the abutters directly across, we can very show us support.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions of the applicant? Frank? Ted?
None of the other neighbors present, or?
Maybe I'll ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
So what is the, on the first floor where you're going to expand it, what is that space used for now?
It's currently kitchen in the backyard.
A bath?
This is the current layout right now, so this is
Yeah.
the kitchen here, this is the little space that we're adding on. So it's a eating area right now in the back, the way we're redoing the... So it's basically, it's really about 4'9" from this point out that we're going. So the addition itself really isn't that much further than the existing. We're just squaring this all off and adding about 4'9" from this point forward.
Is it fair to say that it's really an expansion of the kitchen?
Yes, it's a total expansion of the kitchen.
And the uses of the property will stay the same?
Correct.
And when you finish the property, when you re-shingle the house, will it all appear to be uniform as if it was part of the original structure?
Yes, it'll all be cedar shingles and asphalt shingles, and everything will match, so it won't just look like a rear addition. It will all be nice and uniform and stay consistent.
And how about the paint?
The paint is being discussed right now. To be honest, I'm not
I don't care
sure
what
yet.
color, I'm sorry. Is it all going to be one color?
Yes.
Outside?
Yes,
So the house will be repainted, or the portion of the house that's being improved will be repainted?
correct. Everything
Okay.
will.
I didn't mean to imply that you had to tell the Board of Appeal what color it was. Although maybe the members care, I don't, do you care, Frank? Okay. Ted? Okay. Consistent with,
that's-
the point is that it's not going to be a multicolored building?
No,
Okay.
it'll all be consistent.
Is there a foundation in the addition?
It's going to be on sonotubes, and we're going to do a cement board around the outside.
And how is the current foundation? What is the current foundation like?
The current foundation, this is actually over sonotubes right now, and then there's an existing fieldstone foundation under the, this part of the original building.
Will the foundation appear uniform?
Yes.
So let's
It's
talk,
currently a stucco finish on the outside of the existing foundation, so it'll all be nice and uniform. There will be no, discrepancies or anything like that.
let's talk about your timing. So you've got your drawings, and would you represent to the board that the improvements that you're proposing on behalf of the applicant are substantially the same as the drawings that you've given us?
Yes, they're the same exact drawings.
Exact drawings?
Yep,
And these would be the basis that you would pull the building permit?
correct.
And what about the timing of the improvements?
As far as...
I mean,
when we're
would you start tomorrow if you could, or is this something that you're going to be doing in the spring, or
I believe it's all weather providing, to be honest with you.
weather dependent?
Yes.
All right, okay. But it's also not 2 years away?
No. Nope, as soon as, as I was talking to the,
Okay. And let's talk about the neighbors. So we have a copy of the abutters list, and how many of the neighbors did you speak to, or did somebody speak to?
We speak to everybody that we know on our street. New neighbors across the street, Mary Jane and River here, Phyllis and Scott next door, our rear neighbors, so pretty much everybody in the neighborhood.
And did anybody object to it in any way?
No.
Did everybody like it? Okay. Well, there's not going to be any more, because tonight's the hearing, right? So,
in the 3 years, not to cut you off, in the 3 years that they've lived there, they were actually commenting that they've had a lot of positive feedback just in the general. They brought the house up. The house was, I guess, a real eyesore prior to them buying it. Everybody, even people they don't know, have been very happy with how they've transformed the house so far, so they just want to keep that good nature going.
and the proposal is not exacerbating it's not minimizing the dimension between 165 Thatcher and 175 Thatcher, right?
No.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, Frank. Ted?
Just one, I notice a fence on the side where the addition is. What's the height of the fence? Just out of curiosity. 6 feet? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the application of Kathleen McComb at 165 Thatcher Street?
We live at 175, so we're the neighbors that
Oh, you're the neighbors, yeah, right.
most impacted, and we don't have any problem with it at all. I think
Okay.
it'd be a nice addition to the house.
Now, are you the same person who testified earlier?
That's my husband.
Oh, you're together? Are you both testifying in the same way?
Don't own the house, I wouldn't want to
Are you both in favor? So,
That's why I put my 2 cents.
2 approvals for 175. Does anybody else wishes to speak in favor? Anybody who wishes to speak against the application of Kathleen McComb at 165? If you do, you have to deal with the people at 175. Hearing none, I'm going to close the testimony of the hearing tonight, and we're going to deliberate in accordance with the open meeting law, as John Leonard would say, right here and now. Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor of granting this variance. It is very similar to the type of variance that this board has granted many times in the past. These lots tend to be small. The addition's wholly within the rear of the structure, not visible from the front, and it does not intrude any further than the already existing dimensions of the side yard setback. So I would vote yes.
Thank you very much.
All I would add to that is, no one objecting to it, and everyone seeming to be in favor of it. I would agree and support the granting of the variance.
I agree with my colleagues. So we'll vote, the Board of Appeals will vote 3-0 to approve this application. The variance is approved. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping. One of the members of the board will write the variance. It will take 2 to 3 to 4 weeks to do that, depending upon how the members' schedules are. We'll provide that to Mary, who will make it available to you, and will file it with the town clerk. We'll get your copy for you. You can record that at the Registry of Deeds so that it can run with your land. I will tell you that the improvements need to be built within 1 year, or need to be started within 1 year of the date that the variance is issued under state law. So that's really a guidepost in terms of the schedule, which is why I asked you the question. Congratulations and good luck with your improvements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your prerogative to assign it.
What's that?
Your prerogative to assign it.
You want to do it?
Sure.
Excellent, thank you very much. Wait a minute, I might have given you too much. Maybe not. Of course, I'm going to eliminate all my little jokes because I know that I'm being taped right now. Of course, it used to happen to me all the time. Too funny. Oh, that too. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Well, we're trying to run a tight ship. It's 7:45. Has John Leonard ever done this? 7:30 and then 7:45? We're gonna have to call him tomorrow. I don't know. I don't recall that.
Not a chance.
We have a second hearing. Second hearing tonight is the 7:45 hearing upon the application of Juliet S. Turner and FMD Turner, dated October 31st, 2012, here in the John Cronin Conference Room at 7:45. It's on a application for variances from the terms of Section 6A1 and 6C1 of Chapter 10 of the General Bylaws of the Town of Milton. The applicants own one unified lot containing approximately 172,000 square feet, approximately 3.89 acres, having a total frontage of approximately 350 feet along a pre-existing 25-foot right-of-way in the Brush Hills Road section of Milton. The property is in a Residence A zoning district. 2 houses currently sit on one lot. The smaller house, numbered 1041 Brush Hill Road, was constructed in 1941 and was constructed on the property lot line. The larger house was constructed in approximately 1947. The applicant seek to subdivide the property into two separate lots. Lot A, 1065 Brush Hill Road, is proposed to contain 99,149 square feet with a frontage of 214.9 square feet along the 25-foot right-of-way. And Lot B, 1041 Brush Hill Road, is proposed to contain 72,800 square feet and have a frontage of 125.1 feet along, 125.1 feet along the 25-foot right-of-way. The applicant seek a variance for Lot B at 1041 Brush Hill Road from Section 6A1 of the zoning bylaw, which requires newly created lots have 150 feet of frontage on a street as defined in the zoning bylaw. The applicants also seek a variance for the existing house on Lot B, which was constructed on the lot line in 1941, which the applicants contend was permitted under the 1941 zoning bylaws. Section 6C1 presently requires a 15-foot side lot line setback in resident A districts. The applicant's proposal is set forth in a plan of land in Milton, Mass., dated September 28, 2012, by DeSeal, Burke and Associates of Quincy. All is set forth in the application on file with the board and open to public inspection. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be serving as the chair of the board tonight in place of John Leonard, who is the chairman. Ted Daber, a member of the board, is to my left, and Frank O'Brien is to my right. I have in front of me the file that's been filed with the Board of Appeal, which consists of an application, a letter from Joseph Prondak, the Milton Building Commissioner, consistent with the advertisement I just read, as well as a plan of land from DeSeal and Burke, as indicated in the advertisement. We will begin the hearing now. I see Mr. Sheffield, who I'm assuming represents the applicant.
I do.
Mr. Sheffield, welcome to the Board of Appeals. How can we help you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the board. This is a rather unique application insofar as we have two houses on a single lot. These are owned by Mr. and Mrs. Turner, and they're off Brush Hill Road. After more than 20 years of marriage, Mr. and Mrs. Turner separated in 2011, and they are now going through divorce. It is proposed that they divide the lot so that if it is sold, one of the units could be sold rather than two. Since it is, there are two houses on the same lot, they can only be sold together on a combined basis. They cannot be sold independently. On the plan, and I believe each of you have a copy of the plan, and I will give a copy of the plan to anybody that is interested. The 125-foot rather than 150-foot frontage is requested because of the topography and shape of the land, whereas the main house, being 1065 Brush Hill Road, if you gave more than 125 feet, it would actually be blocked by, it wouldn't have frontage in front of it, it would only have frontage on the side of it. And 1041 is on the southerly side of the lot itself. 1041 was built in 1941, or 1939 it started building and received an occupancy permit, to the best of my understanding, in 1941. The home at 1065, I believe, was replaced in construction post-war in about 1947. Um, This is on an existing right-of-way that goes back to 1889, and was redefined further in deeds in 1922, 27, and 1935. The deeds provided that those that had access to the road, or the right-of-way, were commonly with the Turners would have the right to use the said way to Brush Hill Road in common with others entitled thereto for all purposes for which streets or ways may now or hereafter be commonly used in the town of Milton. In addition to the approval of the Board of Appeals regarding the variance, the two variances that are being requested, it is also, it has to go before the planning board before this plan can be recorded in the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds and be made official. There is no proposed change to either of the buildings. There is no proposed change to the use of the buildings. There is no proposed change to the use of the existing driveway. The driveway comes off the right-of-way and goes left to one house and right to the other. I'm sure that the board is not familiar with the two houses involved. I would pass to you so you can see the pictures of the two homes, and they are based on the assessor's records. I would also like to point out that on the plan, there seems to be a right-of-way, a 40-foot right-of-way to the right, or the easterly side of the property. The Turners have no rights under their deed or other for the use of that right-of-way, so there can be no entrance or addressing the property from that side. Jeff, the picture is on the other side.
Oh, I got it, yeah. It's nice looking.
So the purpose of this division is not to create any additional house, any additional home, any additional changes, any additional access, any additional driveways, or anything other than to be able to sell the two houses separately if and when they are about to be sold. And I would request respectfully to ask the board to grant this variance for the 125-foot rather than 150-foot frontage. Also, I would ask the board to permit the zero side lot line variance as this structure was built prior to the zoning requirement that had a side lot setback. And it is right on the side lot line. So in order that the house may not have to be moved, I would ask that that variance be granted at this time.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Let me, thank you, Mr. Sheffield. Let me just add to my earlier comments. When I indicated what was in the file, I failed to indicate that the board has also received an email from Gerald Roach that if it's okay, I'll just read.
By all means.
It came a week ago, the 21st, so it'd be a week ago today. Dear Mary Fitzgerald, In reference to the subdivision submitted by Julie and Mark Turner, both Robin Samora and Gerald Roach object to the approval of this subdivision of the property. This approval would reduce the value of our property at 1067 Brush Hill Road. When we purchased our home, our personal and professional assessments of property surrounding us was based on estate values considerably more than our home. Our decision to purchase was based on these estate values. Reducing an estate value will directly affect real estate values in our neighborhood. P.S. I will attend the meeting. Sincerely, Gerald Roach and Robin Samora. I just wanted to indicate that for the record. So the rest of the file indicates the abutters, names of the abutters to whom I'm assuming that notification was issued. Let me, at this time, let me ask whether or not, on a preliminary basis, whether any of my colleagues have questions for Mr. Sheffield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Frank?
Mr. Sheffield, this is a unique application, and we're going to delve into the bowels of property law, I have a feeling, during the course of this particular hearing.
That's fine.
Having two inhabited buildings on one lot is a unique situation in the town.
It's unusual.
Are you aware of any prior history for this property before the Board of Appeals? Any special
No, it
permits
has
or
never
anything
gone
else?
to the Board of Appeals in the past. And when the Turners bought the property, there was also somebody living in the other, somebody living in both homes, and they both vacated, and the Turners moved in.
You characterize the second structure as a home. Was it originally built as a home?
No, it was originally built as a barn. In fact, prior to 1937, no, 1939, I'm sorry, it was a barn, and this was really farmland. In 1939, it was reconstructed as a home and a residency permit was given to it by the town of Milton. And it is not unheard of, but there aren't too many properties like this.
Has this structure been inhabited by people who were employed by or related to either the current or prior owners?
Yes, it definitely is.
Jim, and I'm going to have more questions later, but
I guess one of my questions is, on the frontage, you made a comment about how if, I may be phrasing it differently than you did, if Lot B, I guess it is, had the requisite 150 feet of frontage, you said something about the
Yes.
frontage of Lot A. I mean,
If Lot B had the requisite amount of frontage, which would be up here somewhere,
25 feet more, right? But roughly?
yeah, then the whole front of this house coming from the right-of-way coming from Brush Hill Road would essentially be owned by somebody else. Now, as I mentioned, that there's somebody living in these, and most of the time these have been caretakers or related or whatever. The purpose is of this division is to allow these to be unrelated and permit continued occupancy unrelated. Because coming up here, this would possibly depreciate the value of this home by the fact that the whole frontage or visual part of it would reduce the value of the home. And that would be the hardship insofar as by having the property in here, that reduces and eliminates the negative aspects of somebody owning the property in front of your house.
The extra is 25 feet?
Yes.
In your broad statement at the beginning, you were talking about how it was affected by, I think, the shape and topography. Is that, by topography, what do you mean?
By the topography, this sits on a hill,
Okay.
okay? And when you come up the right-of-way, you can see this house, and it's a beautiful home. If the owner here were to put, pine trees or something, it would depreciate the appearance of the home and have a definite negative factor.
Could something like that be handled with restrictive easements, or something that would preclude somebody from building trees?
That might be possible. We also have easements proposed, and you'll see the easement areas to permit and require the continued use of the current driveway, so that there would be a driveway off the right-of-way that would be shared. It would be a shared driveway, and that's done by easement. Usually I try to avoid easements that get into planting restrictions, et cetera. And
But they could be. They could be done.
It theoretically could be.
I'll probably have more questions, too, Mr. Chairman.
You talk about this 150, this additional 25 feet to Mr. Davis' point.
Yes.
You kind of have an odd situation to begin with, though, right? Because you're proposing a shared driveway in front of that home anyway.
That's correct.
So in terms of the need for that second variance, or the first variance, depending upon how you characterize it, it's really being driven by the matter of convenience as to where you draw the property line, is it not?
Well, it's always by a matter of convenience, yes.
I'm just suggesting that it's not as if there's a clean break in these two lots, and that's not what's being proposed here. You are going to have a common driveway
Well-
right in front of the main home.
Well, remember that frontage has to go back 100 feet to be called frontage. So if you put the lot line more or less here, it wouldn't be considered frontage, because frontage, by definition, in the definition section of the Milton bylaw, has to extend 75% of the required 150 feet.
Don't misunderstand my question. I'm not asking you to change your application. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that it's not as if the board is presented with something where there's a clean break here and one lot is really going to be independent of the other. These are really going to be joined because they have common access point.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, let's talk about this right-of-way. Who owns the fee in the right-of-way? Do you know?
Yeah, it's 50/50. It goes back to an agreement in 1889.
Is there two property owners on Brush Hill Road?
Oh, well, Mr. Roach has frontage on the right-of-way. Mr. Clancy has frontage on the right-of-way, but
Where are they?
owns the right-of-way.
Where is Roach and Clancy on the drawing?
Okay. Mr. Roach now owns what was known as the Rose Cottage. And to orient you, this is
Yep.
Brush Hill Road, this is coming up. Okay? This is Mr. Roach's property, the Rose Cottage. This is Mr. Clancy's property. Then back here, there is the Taylors.
No, you're
I'm sorry.
you're telling me who's got the rights to use the right-of-way?
Yeah.
Who owns the fee in the right-of-way, do you know?
Yeah, 50/50, they own to the middle.
The two abutters.
Each
The
two
Wil-
abutters.
Wilmington and the Willington and Hopkins. This
In other
property and that
words,
property.
yeah,
And then all the way up.
all the way up here.
So the applicants own the fee in half of it
That's
as well, adjacent to their property.
That's
I
correct.
see, okay.
That's correct.
And you said that the way the title works is the the applicants have the benefit of the right to pass and repass over the right-of-way for all purposes for which streets and ways are used in the town of Milton.
Exactly.
So you don't believe there's any overburdening of the easement on
There
account
would
of
be
the...
no overburdening of the
Because it's
easement,
consistent
because there's no additional vehicles that would be there that aren't there now.
So who's using 1041 now, and how has that historically been used?
Juliet lives there now, and that is where she's lived for the last year and a half. She's one of the applicants.
Okay, okay.
And her husband lives in 1065, which is this house.
Is there any common systems that serve the two properties? Are there any common systems?
Well, I imagine there's a common sewer system because all these people have a common sewer easements
But-
that were agreed upon by them. No? No.
There's a septic, there's separate septics for each.
Each property has its own septic?
I imagine the water line might come up and split. I mean, the water from the town.
Separately metered electrical, separately metered...
They're quite far away from each other.
I have no further questions. I'm interested in whether or not, do you have any further testimony you'd like to?
No, it's just that we have a number of houses now, the Roach Cottage fronts on it, the McConnell's property, I said Taylor, it's the McConnell's property that is on Brush Hill Road and fronts on the right-of-way. But I think that's primarily what I need to say.
Can I ask if there's anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application as presented? Can I ask, seeing none, can I ask if there is anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application?
You received my letter.
Yes. Would you like to make a statement to the board?
No, I think the letter speaks very clearly in regards to...
Would you tell people who you are, would you mind?
Gerald Roach at 1067 Brush Hill Road. I believe when we bought the property, again, just to reiterate, these are large estates. I thought it was a great business deal for my family to move there for evaluation purposes. And Mark and Julie really have been really good neighbors. The fact of the matter is, it's devaluing our property, we feel, if they allow the subdivision to go through.
Anybody else? Yes. Just stand and tell us who you are, and
Yeah, my name's
you can come up if you'd like, whatever you're comfortable with. Or you could stay there, whatever you want.
Thank you.
You're
My
welcome.
name is Craig McNaught. I'm a resident of Milton on Eric Drive. I have one question, is that we hear discussions by Mr. Sheffield about the deficiency of not having 150 feet, but it's 150 feet on a right-of-way as opposed to 150 feet on a street. This is not a publicly accepted street. This is a right-of-way. And I think if the board grants it, there is an awful lot of other properties on right-of-ways that we might be facing subdivisions because of this action. Because few people are going to grant a house lot status off of a right-of-way. That's a whole different ball of wax than a street.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I live at 26 Walcott Road.
And your name, I'm sorry?
My name is Lisa Leo Erkovic. I too have a very similar property wherein I have two subdivided lots. I have a 3-acre parcel of property. It's a big type of estate type property. And I subdivided the carriage house to one lot and my main house, which I live in another lot. I mean, we own all of it, but I did it the right way and have the frontage. Didn't have to go through any type of appellate process. I did it honestly and fairly according to what the requirements of the town are. And I have two legitimately old barns. One barn was there at the turn of the and the appropriate, you know, requirements so that I didn't have to affect the neighborhood and I could have 2 lots. But I feel like this is just a way to just increase the, you know, knock the house, make more money, and then knock the house down, put up something gigantic, and then we all have to look at it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Actually, then, I,
Your name, please, and
Carol Bowen, I live at 1070 Brush Hill Road.
1070,
I
so,
don't abut, I'm across the street.
Good sign.
But as much as I would like to have it go forward for Juliet and her husband, I have concerns just about the overall feel for the neighborhood. I bought my property up there because of the size of the lots. I specifically wanted more land. It has a very, you know, country feel there, and it is gradually disappearing. And I know that there's more talk of apartments farther up the street. A lot of greenland is getting used up, which is a particular concern of mine. I guess I'm also concerned if the current owners sell, although there's not a lot of traffic there now. Those houses are substantial enough that you could house quite large families in them, and you would conceivably have multiple cars using that right-of-way. It's not my right-of-way, it wouldn't affect me that much. But those are a few of my concerns. Another set of neighbors called me the Hopkins. They called me today and said that they were not in favor of it for the same reasons that Mr. Roach isn't, that it might devalue their property and cause more traffic to go up the road.
now which house is yours? You said you lived across the street?
I live across, I guess at the bottom of it, at the bottom of the right-of-way.
Directly across?
And that's actually, there's a fair amount of traffic that goes up in there. I'm familiar a lot with that because all the big trucks park in front of my house. Electrical work, and my fence has been plowed down 5 times, slight exaggeration, by snow plows that come and, you know, try to find places for snow to go and things like that. I mean, it's kind of a cramped area, although it may look quite open there. And I'd hate to think that more traffic would be going up that road. It's quite a private road.
Is anybody else? Yes.
We're at 1033, we're directed buyers.
And your name?
Susan Tracta, and my husband Jeff Patterson as well. We want to, first of all, just echo and.
I'm sorry, direct abutters to the left, looking at the property. You're on Brush Hill?
No, we're to the north. We have 500 feet that we share a common border with.
Would you mind just pointing out, just so that we can orient?
The next to the existing 1060.
I see.
And we agree with all that's been said.
So you use the right-of-way as well?
We do. We certainly see the potential for devaluing the properties in the area because of the nature of the very large estate-like lots. We're very uncomfortable with the precedent that's being set by carving out a very unusual piece of property that in itself has less value than a well-conceived one. And we're concerned about the precedent of calling a cottage, a caretaker's cottage, a guest house, a home for purposes of subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak against the application?
Peter Leaf, and I live at 1015 Brush Hill Road, which directly on Brush Hill Road. And I'm just concerned, I don't know much about it, I just would be concerned that this is a large lot and with an older building on it, and I don't know how long that's going to be the actual residence on that piece of property. I can't imagine that somebody else is going to come in and try to put a different house on that lot, and that would change the nature of the property. I don't see that building that's on there now is going to last very long if the property is sold to another owner.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm Björn Olsen, one of the neighbors, the butters, next to the 1041. And I would like to add to this that the house on 1041 is a nice apartment on the second floor. But basically, this is a garage for the main house, 1065. And so if this is divided, I could immediately predict that the garage will come up next to 1065, and perhaps a new owner of the new property with 1041 would build a main house on that property as well. It would increase the density of people perhaps, and increase traffic on the right-of-way. And I also have a question about the strip of land that connects about me along the driveway to which there is no right of access, but along the Wayne House barn that ends at Russian Road. It's a strip of land with rights for traffic from that lot B to Russian Road. And what would happen if one pushes that legally as a right of way directly to Russian Road? I would need to have more information about what that implies legally for lot B before I could decide on this one.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think that's a fair question. I don't have the answer. I don't know if Mr. Sheffield or if somebody else wants to
I'd
make a
be
comment
glad
about-
to address all the questions that are,
Oh, I don't know if we have any other questions. I didn't hear any other questions, but there is a question about whether, maybe one way to phrase the question, is there any use proposed for that portion of the property?
absolutely no use proposed.
How is it currently used?
Pardon me?
How is it currently used?
It's
Lawn?
trees,
Trees.
yes, there's brush, vegetation.
Is there a wall on Brush Hill Road adjacent to that?
There's no wall on Bush Hill Road adjacent to that. There is a wall on the easterly side of that, which is close to the, closer to the Dr. Wayne's home. Dr. Wayne lives behind, down between 1041 and Brush Hill Road.
The answer is not readily apparent today. I mean, we don't have the ability to get the answer to that question. Anybody else like to speak in opposition to the application? Yes. Could you stand up, please, Christine?
I'm at 1027 Russell Road, so on the other side, going up on the Walcott side.
Yeah.
So I feel that I agree with Mr. Roach, Mr. Bowen, that it would potentially devalue our property, cut up the vast spaces that attracted us to Milton in the first place. We are already experiencing a development on Walcott Street with some sort of, we don't know for sure, halfway house. That would be my direct backyard, so then I would be bookended between potential new property as well as that. So that's my stand too.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Peter Millington. I live at 1057 Brush Hill Road. That's on the corner of Brush Hill Road itself and the private drive. And my house actually does utilize that private drive. I do believe that actually we own.
I'm sorry, which private drive? The 40-foot or the 25-foot?
It's the road going back, the 20 foot, 25 foot, sorry, I didn't have it. I believe that
Oh, I
that
see,
we
yeah.
actually own that right of way and possibly share that ownership with the Hopkins. But in any case, the Turners have always been very good neighbors, but to echo some of the other comments, my concern would be if the properties are actually divided and sold, what would happen on this other piece at 1041? I think it's quite likely that a new owner would want to put a new, potentially larger dwelling, and we would have concerns of the impact on our neighborhood and traffic and valuations.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is Colleen. I live at 1045 Rushmore Road. I'm director butter. And my husband and I would like to say we're opposed to the granting of these variances for the reasons stated this evening. And just as an aside, years ago, when the Turners and ourselves had some issues with property lines, it was brought to my attention that that strip of land that runs parallel to my driveway was had possible potential to be used if the land was subdivided back then, or that was something that was being held in reserve. So it's nothing, to me, this proposal is not new. It's something I feared back then because it runs extremely close to my driveway as well as my barn and has a stone wall on one side. So I had major concerns about that. And it also, even though it states on land that has 25 feet on Brush Hill Road, it's actually not exactly that length, and it narrows as you move down that strip. It actually narrows roughly down to 18 feet. So I do have concerns about another structure being put where the barn slash carriage house slash whatever you want to call it is right now, because we look directly through our back property at that structure. And I do have concerns about it becoming something much more different than it is right now, if another owner wants to purchase that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. We've already, you can speak twice.
But can we have a discussion about building on a right-of-way?
That was your testimony.
I'd like to address that as soon as I'm allowed to.
That was your testimony. Do anybody else like to offer a comment during the comment period? Mr. Sheffield, would you like to address the board again?
I'd be happy to. I think that a number of issues have been brought up. Depreciation of value, I know this is commonly a fear. I don't believe in this case the division of land would result in a diminution of value of any of the adjacent properties. I believe that it is mere conjecture to believe that it might. As far as a right-of-way that includes the right to use for all purposes as can be used as a road in the town of Milton. If it was in existence prior to 1939, has the same right of frontage and other characteristics as an accepted road. So there is no real differentiation between a road which is accepted and a road which is technically a right-of-way and not owned by the town, but owned by the people that live there. As far as traffic, right now there are 2 homes on this property. If this board were to grant the variance and to allow the line to be drawn, then this would result in the right to have no more homes than exist now. There would be no increase in density, except that if one family moved out, a larger family might possibly move in. We haven't ever relegated the size of a family. We have limits on the number of vehicles, et cetera. But there would be access to 2 residential units with or without this approval. So I don't believe there'd be any increase in traffic. I don't think there's any increase in density. It is true that if somebody buys one of the 2 properties, they may want to either enlarge it, or they may want to modify it, or remodel it, or tear it down and build another house, and that would be a possibility sometime down the line, as would be the possibility with any house in any area of the town. As far as the house not having long to live. It's lived 80 years now, and it seems to, I was there the other night, and it seems to be in fine shape, and I think it's good for another 40 years. What's going to happen after that, God knows what. As far as the road being 18 feet at some point rather than 25 feet, this is a 25 feet right-of-way. The road would not necessarily be 40 feet wide. It is a certain way within the 25 feet. In the 40-foot right-of-way to the right, there is not 40 feet of pavement. There is maybe 18 feet or something along that line. But it's still called a 40 feet right-of-way because there are 40 feet. Finally, I'd like to say that in recognition of the fact that there appears to be significant neighborhood opposition, I think it would be in the best interests of the board, in the best interests of the applicant, if the application were withdrawn, and I'd like to propose for that reason alone that the board accept the application, the withdrawal of this application without prejudice.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments, any further comments about what Mr. Sheffield said? So the withdrawal without prejudice, I am assuming that Mr. Sheffield is reserving his rights to come again before the board.
I'm reserving all rights as
And
if
the
the
applicant-
application had not been submitted.
People understand what's been requested by the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Can you explain what would happen if you denied it with prejudice?
Yes.
Well,
we
well-
did-
No, you go ahead.
If the board were to deny it with prejudice, number one is the board would have to write the decision and all its reasons for denying the request. That would be appealable by the applicant and could go to land court and could get overturned. But if not appealed by the applicant could not bring the same application for a 2-year period. If it is done without prejudice, then the board would not have to write a decision. There would be nothing to appeal on the part of the applicant, and the issue would be dead, just as if the application had never been submitted.
I'm sorry, I took the question as being withdrawal with prejudice.
Pardon me?
Not denial with prejudice.
Okay.
Withdrawal with prejudice, I thought was your question.
Denied with.
Oh, it was denial? Well, we don't generally deny with prejudice. We either deny or accept.
Right.
And they withdraw with prejudice or withdraw without prejudice. Meaning if they withdraw without prejudice, they can't reapply for the 2-year period. That's the way I would interpret the withdrawal with prejudice, and that's the distinction I thought that you were drawing. So what's been requested of the applicant is that they withdraw without prejudice. And if that's the final request, then I think the board can deliberate on that matter. I don't want to prejudge the outcome of the hearing, but I want people to understand what's been requested.
That just means you can reapply in 2 years for the same thing.
It means he could reapply
By 6 months
tomorrow.
later, if we had the neighborhood-
That's the request, you know. So,
Is this a common thing to do during a meeting? Is it something, just curious, I mean, is this something that happens often, or?
this is a formal setting, and we try to conduct the hearings in an informal manner, because people are often not represented by counsel. It's a small town, people know each other, et cetera. Trying to be friendly, giving people an opportunity to be heard and be fair to all the parties. You ask, is it common? You know, we've been sitting, Frank and I have been on this board, Ted's been on this board. It's probably happened a couple of times.
It's not uncommon.
Yeah, yeah. Particularly where you see opposition. I do have something I'd like to say during the deliberative, or maybe I'll say it now. The concern I have with withdrawal without prejudice is that it causes the neighbors to continue to be concerned that the application can continue to be filed. And there is something to be said for the swift carriage of justice or the deliberative administration of the town's business. And
Could we possibly ask the applicant if they intend to reapply?
wait, I think you just did.
The answer would be no, unless there seemed to be fairly unanimous neighborhood approval. The reason why we are,
I would say, though, that if we sell a property, somebody else can reapply, and they might have a lot more money than we do, and could build a garage, want to build a garage attached to our house, or fix the barn. I mean, we just want to go separately. I understand everybody's concerns, but if we sell, you don't know what you're gonna get, that's all. I mean, anybody can
That's
reapply,
our-
any new
that's our
person
big problem.
can come before this board, and, I mean, you guys don't approve this, but it's a new situation.
Let him withdraw it.
People here, people understand where we are? I'd like to close the hearing and the board's going to deliberate, if that's okay. So we'll close the public hearing portion of the hearing, and I'd like to deliberate in accordance with the open meeting. As a chair, I'd like to take a prerogative of expressing my views on this. I have a lot of concerns about the application. It's very unique. A lot of the issues that the neighbors indicated were concerns of theirs, are concerns of mine. Mostly, I'm concerned about the integrity of the Milton zoning code and the expectations that people buy and live in these homes, and their reliance on the code and the reliance on this board to enforce the code and to uphold the code and to vary the terms of the code where appropriate. And some people I see in this audience have been in front of this board before, certainly Mr. Sheffield has, and knows that this board has given variances many, many, many times. But almost universally, or I would say universally, that's when it's clearly in the best interest of all involved, and it's going to result in improvements to the home, generally consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and enjoy broad support of the neighbors. The statutory standard for variances is very high. I say all that not because I don't think that the request of the applicant is unreasonable. I think it is reasonable. But I want the neighbors to know that at least with respect to me as a member of the board, and I've been a longstanding member of the board, I think it's a very unusual request. And I think given the high bar of the variance, particularly in light of the neighborhood opposition, it would be very difficult to obtain either of the variances that have been proposed. I think Mr. Sheffield knows that. I think the case was well presented, and I don't mean to be critical in any way, but I want the neighbors to know that that's how the board would generally consider something like this. We know a lot about Brush Hill Road, and there have been many hearings on Brush Hill Road and this whole estate area for many years. So I think I speak for the members, and I'll let them speak on their own behalf as well, in saying that we take that very seriously. So those are that's the backdrop upon which I would consider this request. Frank?
Mr. Chairman, I share many of your concerns. There is a high burden for the applicant to overcome for zoning issues. Let me just briefly address my thinking relative to the suggested withdrawal of this application. This board is a very deliberative board. We do take the concerns of the applicants and the neighbors quite seriously. We do try to work disputes out. I have been involved in a number of cases during my years on the board where an applicant has voluntarily withdrawn an application, reworked it, worked with the neighbors, and come up with a proposal that is successful and meets the needs of all of the parties. I'm not saying that that is going to occur in this particular case. I don't know. But what I like to do, and the way that I lean, is to give the parties an opportunity to change their positions, to discuss their positions, etc. Because it's my experience that it's many times this is the first opportunity for all of the parties to get together, explore their concerns, and have a serious conversation about the issue. And what sometimes happens is after the serious conversation takes place, the parties go back, decide what they really want to do. So the way that I lean on this particular question is, as a matter of courtesy, I generally lean toward allowing an applicant to withdraw an application without prejudice if they so decide. And that's where I would lean in this particular case as well.
Mr. Daber?
I have the same concerns as my colleagues about the application as presented, and the same thought that though it very well presented, it is an extremely high burden that the applicant faces in this case. I do not have the depth or length of experience as my colleagues in this, and I'm not, this is the first time I've been faced with an application for, or a request for withdrawal of the application, and I would respectfully like to hear what the chairman has to say on that.
I think Mr. O'Brien's right. I think in interest of fairness, but recognizing the concerns that I expressed and the burden that you have and the opposition that's there, I think the fair thing to do is to accept and I would vote to accept the withdrawal without prejudice. And if the matter comes back, we'll rehear the matter with the recognition of all of the concerns that have been expressed and that are now on the record in front of the Board of Appeals. So I'd tend to support the withdrawal without prejudice.
On that basis, I would support it as well.
So your request to withdraw the application without prejudice is approved. I don't know, Mary, if there's paperwork that we need to do to note that in the file, and the neighbors are advised of the board's decision. That's really the end of this hearing and the end of the matter. As far as the board is concerned, good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. While I have you all together,